for this for a long time. They get to be in the stadium to boo the Houston Astros, and they'll be coming to a stadium near you, and we'll be talking to Ben Verlander about this game, about the Astros trades and their future on this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Heisman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Astros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
All right, Mr. Zen Master, Ben Verlander, where can they find you at?
I'm on Twitter at Ben Verlander, Instagram Ben Verlander, and my podcast is Flippin' Bats with Fox Sports.
All right, there was a story behind that. We couldn't hear his voice earlier, but all we heard is this little music coming through his little speaker. But thank you for joining us. We have an awesome show planned for y'all guys, and this show is brought to you by RockAuto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them that Locked On Astros sent you. So thank you guys once again for subscribing to us on the Locked On Astros podcast. We've reached the 1,000. We're getting close to the 1.2 thousand subscribers, and keep on subscribing and keep on watching. And don't forget to listen to us on audio version on Apple, Odyssey, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Keep on listening to the Locked On Astros podcast. We're there, your team, every day. So let's go and get started. Ben, how excited are you to see the Astros play in LA?
Yeah, I think the series starts tomorrow. It's a quick series, and I believe I'm going to be going to the games. So I'm just really excited to be in that stadium. And look, I know it's going to be a hostile environment for the Astros, but more so, I'm just excited to be there to watch two great teams. Wednesday, I believe Max is throwing against the Astros. His first start, Max Scherzer's first start as a Dodger, will be against the Astros. And I'm just really excited to be there. I'm excited to see these two teams. I believe the Dodgers are, if not the best team in the National League, certainly the National League favorite to get to the World Series. And I believe the Astros are probably the favorite right now to get to the World Series on the AL side. So whenever you can get a fun interleague mid-season battle like that, it's going to be awesome. And also the emotion and the tension that's going to be behind it is it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I remember growing up, the Dodgers were always a thorn in our side because we were in the National League, and the whole we hated Tommy Lasorda because the Dodgers always would beat us, and the Astros had a lot of really kind of lean years throughout the 80s, except for the 86 season and stuff like that. But there's this history really goes back to 2017. And it's amazing that in 4 short years, there can be this rivalry that's built, because normally rivalries are built over years and decades, Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Giants, stuff like that. But the Dodgers Astros has become one of the more intriguing matchups because you're never at a loss for a storyline. And especially with Max Scherzer, being that it was rumored that the Astros were actually talking to the Nationals about getting him. And then he comes out and says, I want to go to the West Coast. I don't want to go to Philadelphia or Houston. Now there's more tension because Max didn't want to come here, or so we hear it was reported. It's just a great series with a ton of storylines.
Yeah, you're right. It feels like this, it is a rivalry. It's a rivalry between these two teams. And it feels like it was built fairly quickly. And obviously it has a little to do with everything that went down in 2017. And just, ever since then, it's continued to feel that way. No matter what no matter what it is, like you said, there's a storyline no matter where you turn. And at the end of the day, these are just two great teams playing great baseball that are having fun playing against each other. And there's always that tension there. And I'm with you, no matter where you turn. And that's why this series is going to be so fun. No matter where you turn, there's a storyline to be had. And I can't wait to see those play out.
So I know Jose Altuve has been booed pretty much everywhere he's gone. Do you think it's going to be extra loud against the Dodgers?
I think it's going to be pretty bad. But I don't think they know why. I think they're just going to boo everybody, no matter what they had to do with the 2017 team, no matter, if they see the credential around my neck that says Verlander on the bottom, I'll probably get booed out of the place too. I just think they're booing anything and everything at this point, and that's all part of it. And the best part of this is I think it took the Astros a while to own into the narrative, but it looks like they have. And I think they've owned being kind of the villain. And not only have they owned it, they're thriving with that. And it's fun to watch them play baseball.
Yeah, definitely. And yesterday, well, I believe it was Sunday, because if you're listening on Tuesday, on Sunday, it was the anniversary of us getting Yordan Alvarez from LA for Josh Fields. And what a steal. I mean, one of the biggest trades, I think, in our club's history. We have big trades in our club's history. Jeff Bagwell, who became a Hall of Famer and all that stuff. But, there are things in there for us to be thankful for, guys like Yordan Alvarez. And I know we've got certain guys that may not be in the lineup, where you got Brantley down, you got Bregman still trying to come back from rehab. And it seems like Yordan Diaz, let's focus on him. This guy comes back from getting hit in the hand and is literally catching the world on fire with his power and his bat and his glove at third. Yordan Diaz is a very valuable piece of this lineup that outside of Houston probably doesn't get much attention. Yeah,
and I think Yordan Diaz is a big reason the Astros were able to make that trade for Kendall Graveman and let Toro go to the Mariners. I don't think without Diaz, especially with Bregman on the way back, but we don't exactly know what's going on there. I think Diaz is a reason the Astros were able to get a top tier reliever, is because of his versatility and how well he's been playing. And that could end up, and this isn't, an exaggeration, that could end up winning the Astros a championship, because you go out and get a reliever like that you can trust in the playoffs. That's huge. And Diaz being as hot as he is, and the Astros being able to trust him, allowed them to make that move, allowed them to be comfortable not having Toro anymore, and allowed them to make that move for a top-of-the-line reliever. It's honestly huge. And aside from being able to make that move, just seeing Diaz play the way he is refreshing and really fun to see, because he's been killing it.
Who's in game 2, who's got the most pressure on them, Jake Odorizzi or Max Scherzer playing for a new team?
I got to believe it's Max. It's his first start for the Dodgers. The world will have eyes on him. He was brought in to beat teams like the Astros, and to go up against a guy like Odorizzi, you're not supposed to lose that if you're Max. And it's going to be interesting. And I don't think there's the pressure that Jake doesn't have, the pressure that Max is going to have in that first start. It's his first start, a new team. He was brought in to win a championship. He was brought in to beat teams like the Astros. And if he gets beat around in that first game, it's kind of a bad look, I think.
And I think too, to think of it this way, in baseball, no matter whether you have your best or your quote unquote worst guy in your rotation, if either one of those guys makes 2 or 3 mistakes, it can ruin a start. If Max Scherzer is on and his ball has movement and the bats aren't hitting the ball, then it's going to be his day. But if he makes 2 or 3 mistakes with this offense, it could go south really quick. And Max is a competitor, and he tends to press when he's under pressure. But he is a scary opponent regardless, because he's going to go out with a killer instinct. And then Jake Odorizzi, who's actually done, for the most part, he's actually done really well. And we've been kind of hypercritical of him here or there. But when he's good, he's good. I want to see Odorizzi go through the lineup twice. I don't like him going through a third time, especially being the Dodgers. But I can see how either one of these games can go one way or the other because they are some of the top teams in baseball today.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. It's, when you're at this level, no matter whether you have your 1 or your 5 guy going on the mound, all it takes is a mistake here or there and where you're making the mistake. And I think that's what makes Max so good is when situations get tough and get tense, he tends to get better because all it takes is, okay, I walked a guy and then there was a bloop single. Okay, now it's first and second. If I make a mistake first and second, my first mistake of the game, it could be 3-0 ball game, just like that. And it's all about where do you make those mistakes. And if Jake Odorizzi can go out there and limit his mistakes, the Astros are going to win this game because I promise you Max is going to make a couple mistakes out there on Wednesday night. And like you said, it's all about limiting the mistakes and who makes less and who capitalizes on the mistakes. And it's certainly going to be fun to watch.
Let's call those mistakes bad fish. And if you don't want bad fish, go to Wild Alaskan. Tell us a little bit about that, Brett. Okay,
so we all know that you should be eating better, and omega-3s and protein are a top choice for those. And if you don't like going to the seafood counter, if it's annoying, if you've been to some of these fisheries, you just don't want to walk in and you don't know what to pick out, leave the guessing up to the Wild Alaskan Company because it takes all the guesswork out. You're used to making the choices. Why make the choices when you have the pros? You go out and they deliver high quality, sustainably sourced wild caught seafood right to your door. Choose from salmon, whitefish, and a combination. And every month there are different specials to explore. Each shipment contains premium wild caught, individually wrapped portions of delicious seafood that's ready to prepare and easy to cook. So Ben, if it's a date night, get Wild Alaskan because they can deliver right to your door. It's how nature intended it to be. It's always wild, never farmed, never modified, and it contains no antibiotics. You can adjust, pause, or cancel your membership at any time. So right now, you can get $15 off your first box of premium seafood when you visit wildalaskancompany.com/MLB. That's wildalaskancompany.com/MLB for $15 off your first box. wildalaskancompany.com/MLB. Use the URL and let them know that we sent you.
All right. You know what? Perfect place to watch the game tomorrow will be at Hooters. Tell us a little bit about Hooters on NASA.
Okay. So here's the deal. I'm going to give you an address if you're in the Houston area, 20796 Gulf Freeway in the Floor and Decor parking lot. You have Hooters, and they have every Thursday. It's called Texas Thursday on Thursdays. Come and see your favorite Hooters calendar girls in cutoff jeans and cowboy boots and dance to Copperhead Road. They've got $15 buckets, $5 crafts, and more every Thursday. They also, August 7th, have UFC on the TV. If you don't have your tickets and you aren't able to make it to the Toyota Center, I almost said the Compact Center, then I almost said the Summit. If you can't make it to the Toyota Center, then go to Hooters August 7th, watch a UFC fight. They've got all the great foods, all the great deals, all the great craft beers, things on tap. That's 20796 Gulf Freeway, Hooters and Webster. Go check them out. Tell them Locked On Astros sent you.
All right. Ben, without making it too uncomfortable, how is Justin doing? Is he getting too used to not playing baseball? And he's not thinking about hanging up after the season, is he?
Oh, no, absolutely not. The healthier he gets and the deeper he gets into rehab, the more that itch comes back. And I'm just excited that he feels good. Things are going really well. And you can just feel it. You can see that burn back in his eyes when he's throwing. You can hear it in his voice. He's excited for his future, and he is certainly not hanging it up after this year.
So I don't know how much. I mean, have you talked to him a lot while he's going through his rehab?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I talk to him almost every day.
Okay, and I want to ask you. I heard you share a story on your Flippin' Bats podcast about the time you got to face your brother Justin in an at bat. Can you walk us through that? Because I heard this story and I was like, our fans got to hear this story. This is a great story.
I can absolutely walk you through this story. I'm glad you brought it up. I've never faced my brother in my life. He's 9 years older than me, and we never competitively faced each other. And in spring training in 2015, I believe, I was playing in the Tigers organization, and obviously he still was at the time. And he's pitching down in the AAA game on the backfield, and I see him over there pitching. I'm on the field right next to him. So I go up to my hitting coordinator and say, "Hey, I've never faced my brother. Can we make this happen?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, go up and I want you to face him. I don't want you to lead off the game because he'll see you out there. I want you to hit second, but don't walk out on deck. Just wait behind the dugout." And these backfield games are like, dugouts are. It's almost like a high school field. So I'm like behind the dugout when the first batter's hitting. He pops up to right field. My brother turns around to watch the right fielder catch the ball. By the time he turns back around, I'm standing there in the box like, "Let's go." And he turns around and he's like, "Oh God, this is just not what I want." So the first pitch he threw me was a fastball about middle in, and I hit it out to deep right center field, hit a home run, first and only pitch I've ever faced him. I end up rounding the bases. James McCann is the catcher, and he takes off his helmet and he's laughing. The whole place is going nuts. I run back over to my field, and I've never faced him again. And the best part of this is the guy doing the chart, who I believe was Michael Fulmer, came up to me after and goes, "Just so you know, that was the hardest pitch your brother threw all day by 4 miles an hour. So he was trying to get you there." And I got him.
That's awesome. And as you said, you went opposite field, right?
Yeah, deep right center.
Nice.
Probably one of the furthest balls I hit in pro ball.
and so that just seems like a field of dreams moment. So Johnny Munoz asked, "Did you get the baseball?"
I never did. I never got it. I almost wonder if I hit. I still don't know if it's landed, to be honest with you guys. I think that might be why I haven't gotten the baseball.
That is your Albert Pujols moment, right? Wow. Or Yordan Alvarez moment, I should say. Sorry, Astros fans.
Well, I know you can't tell us anything, but a lot of these, I'm sure you can see the comments and everything, but a lot of fans want you to pass a message to Justin that say they would like him to come back next year. So just pass the message.
Yeah, a series of blinks and nods. I think they're asking for blink 5 times if he's coming back. We've got some fans that are really, but I think it's not just because of maybe any pitching struggles we've had. It's because we feel like he was really a big piece of the 2017 season. And I believe he holds a special place in Houston. I mean, just more than just being a player on this team, but being a presence. You and I talked the first time you were on about how, when he's in the dugout yelling at guys, "Come on, let's go." It's just having that leadership there.
Yeah. And, I know he feels the same way about Houston. This place and this city means so much to him. And he won the World Series there with an incredible group of guys. And like you said, he's my brother, so I don't know the feel in the city, but to me, it feels like he's more than just a pitcher on this team, and he became a leader of that team so quickly. And, I'll never forget that time he came out of the game. He threw really well, but the team was losing, and he comes back up the tunnel and yells at the guys. And it wasn't like "you guys are doing awful, turn it around." It was "Hey, I went out there and busted my butt for you guys. Let's turn this around. Let's bust our butts and come back and win this ball game." And I feel like that was a really critical moment for that team and that year, and that playoff run was what happened in that game and what happened in that dugout there. And, it's a moment that I know I'll never forget, and he'll never forget. And that team will obviously never forget, because they go on to win the World Series, and that was pretty cool.
So going back to 2017, where were you, or when did you find out that he was traded to Houston?
So I was actually in Los Angeles at the time. I was still playing. or I had just finished playing, but thought maybe I could be going back. And I remember that night like it was yesterday. I'll never forget that night. And, I knew it was a possibility. I had talked to him a few times throughout the night, and the whole way it went down was just honestly really crazy because we didn't know where he was going to go. He had a full no trade clause, so he can say no to anybody. He wanted to go win, and it just became a situation of we don't know what's going to happen, don't know where we're going, but I know wherever I go, I'm going to win. And it ended up being the Houston Astros, and I'd say he made the right decision that year. But it was, to be honest with you, it was an emotional night. My brother has played in Detroit his whole career at that point. And Detroit did and always will mean so much to him. And that night, kind of making the decision, I'm out of here for I don't know how long, but this, I'm not going to spend my entire career here when he thought he was. And it was certainly an emotional night. But one thing that helps those emotions is when 3 months later you're a World Series champion. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know a lot of Astros fans would like to bet on Justin Verlander coming back to Houston Astros. Brett, tell us a little bit about betonline.ag.
Yeah, so BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get all your sportsbook act. Baseball season we know is in full swing, and heck, before the next pitch of the next Astros game, if you want to see how many home runs Yordan Alvarez is going to hit against the Dodgers, even if he pinch hits, go check out betonline.ag. If you want to check out the UFC action that's going to happen here in Houston coming up August 7th at the Toyota Center, go to betonline.ag. If you want to bet on who's going to make it to the Super Bowl, will Tom Brady go to the Super Bowl again? Will Aaron Rodgers go to the Super Bowl again now that he's with the Pack? All the information you need is right there. So head to the website and use your mobile device to sign up today. You'll get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline is your sportsbook experts. Use the promo code LOCKEDON.
Alrighty, so if you're trying to get to the baseball field to watch your Houston Astros, you want to make sure you have a working automobile. So go to rockauto.com. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, rockauto.com is a great place. Whether you're driving, I'm sure Ben's got that sweet Maserati he's rolling in, or someone's rocking the Dodge Voyager minivan, or, you're rocking the Titan or whatever it is you drive. They have the parts for your car. Why go to a storefront? Why get upcharged because you're not a professional mechanic? I mean, you're an average everyday guy like us three. You want to save money. You don't want to spend out the wazoo just to get a part changed or just to replace a part that you can do. So go to rockauto.com. It's easily navigable. Their prices are 30, 50, sometimes 100% cheaper than what you get in the store. And saving money is the name of the game. Whether you're going to Sugarland Skeeters to watch an up-and-coming Astro or whether you're going to Minute Maid to watch Justin Verlander pitch, it doesn't matter. rockauto.com has all the parts that you need. And when you check out, I want you to write in the where did you hear about us box, I want you to put Locked On Astros and let them know that we sent you. Rock Auto, reliable low prices, amazing website, all the parts you'll ever need at rockauto.com.
All right, so let's go away from the uncomfortable where will my brother pitch next year and go towards the Carlos Correa situation. As somebody who's not really associated with the Astros, where do you see Carlos Correa signing? Do you see him staying with the Astros or do you see him going elsewhere?
When I look at Correa, I just feel like he's one of those guys that just feels like he's an Astro. Like he's become the face of this team. There's this core group of guys. Bregman, Altuve, and Correa almost feel to the Astros what Bryant, Rizzo, and Baez felt like to the Cubs. And I hope that's not this omen for they're all leaving. But that's what they feel like. And I truly believe Correa re-signs with the Astros. He's been vocal about wanting to get it done. I know Crane and Click have said, we're going to try to get this done. So, I'm hopeful that they can get something done. I would like to see Carlos stay in Houston, and I think it would just be the perfect fit. I feel like Carlos Correa is the shortstop of the Houston Astros, and it'd be really weird to see him elsewhere. And I don't think we're going to for a while.
The reason I wanted to bring it up is seeing how he stood up for the Astros last year, especially with all the controversy. Especially with the Cody Bellinger thing, us going to face the Dodgers with the whole Joe Kelly situation. He just kind of he became the Astros enforcer, so to speak. And for him to leave, that would just be, he's more than just the shortstop. He's more than just the bat. He means something to his team, like you're just saying. And it's just unfortunate. So kind of going away from that situation, how do you see the Astros after the trade deadline? Do you think they did enough?
I loved the moves that the Astros made in the bullpen and felt really good about the team. The move right there at the end with Miles Straw, just it really confused me. It just felt like, look, Miles Straw might not be the best hitter in the world, and he's very fast, and everybody thinks that automatically makes you a good defender. He might not be the best outfielder in the world, but what he is he's a good baseball player, and he's the center fielder of the Houston Astros. And no matter what, and bringing up, if there's a guy in the minor leagues, which it sounds like there is, that they really believe in is the future. I've seen it over and over again. You look back at the Kansas City Royals when they won the World Series. They had guys they brought off the bench that were just faster than the baseball, it felt like, and could steal base at any time. And Miles Straw is a guy that is valuable to your team no matter what. And it just seemed like a move that really surprised me because it didn't feel like the Astros got enough back for the starting center fielder of the team. But I love what they did in the bullpen. Getting a guy like Kendall Graveman is huge. And then going out and getting some other pieces that are going to be very valuable in that bullpen. Look, pitching wins in the playoffs, and the bullpen was a glaring issue. And I look at the Astros team, and they went and addressed the glaring issue. So for that reason, I think the Astros had a great deadline. When I look at a team, let's say like what the New York Yankees did, who had also a glaring issue, and it's the pitching. They go out and make the sexy move, if you will, and get a Joey Gallo and an Anthony Rizzo and address a spot in the lineup that maybe they needed, but it wasn't the glaring issue. So the Astros might not have made the sexiest deadline moves, but they made the ones that they needed to. So I love what they did.
Yeah, I think with the Miles Straw thing, it just shocked a lot of people. We even had Robert Flores from MLB Network the night before the trade deadline, expired. And his name never came up. I mean, and that was what was most shocking. And obviously, they wanted Chas McCormick to get more playing time, is what it appears. And so that's the move they decided to make. Now, I know that I have read that they were in on Matan for a while. They really like to spin rate. They like to swing and miss stuff. And so with this offense, I know you and I covered the offense a little bit. I went back, and of course now I'm going to preface this. This isn't like a gotcha question, but I know in the beginning of the season, the Astros weren't in your top 5 offenses power ranking. What have the Astros done this year to move into that top 5 that maybe you think has, moved them up? Because clearly there were other offenses and other teams that going into the season that other people were picking, hey, these are going to be the top teams. What have the Astros done to move up there? What are they so great at, the outside looking in?
They're great at everything. They're great at their approach at the plate. They're great at hitting the ball out of the yard. They're great at, being clutch, having the right guy up at the right time. And it's hard to not have the right guy up at the right time when your lineup is as deep as it is. They're incredible. And they are from top to bottom. And, it's been really cool because obviously I have a connection with the Houston Astros and always will. And I know the Cranes well, and my brother is a part of this organization. And now that I work in baseball, I kind of have had to take a little step and not be like a homer, if you will. But what's been really cool is is being a part of this organization and this franchise in 2017 when the team and my brother went out and won a World Series, and seeing everything that happened the following year and the following years, and now getting to the point where the Astros are the best offense in baseball. And it's really cool to see. And it's not because of anything other than the talent on the field. It's not because of anything other than Altuve and Bregman and Yordan and Brantley and Correa and that core of guys. They're just really, really good. And they're shutting up all the haters, if you will. And it's pretty cool to watch them literally become the best offense in baseball, like everybody knew they were, to be quite honest with you.
So right here, this question posed from Mr. Corona. He's one of our regulars. White Sox versus Astros ALCS 2021. What say you, Ben Verlander?
Oh, that's a tough one, man. This is the battle. When I look at the two best teams in the American League, it's those two. You know, I look at the Red Sox, and they've had an incredible year, and they're a great team. I'm really disappointed in what they did at the deadline. Going out and adding Schwarber is going to, you know, he's a good offensive bat, but I felt like they could have done more in their situation. So I look at those two teams as the Chicago White Sox and the Houston Astros as the best teams in the American League. And I truly believe that's going to be an incredible battle between the two. Look, what it's going to come down to, because if you look at the two rosters on paper, it's tough to beat the White Sox. You know, they have from top to bottom, a dynamic rotation. They have a great offense. And then you have, a bullpen that they just bolstered by getting Kimbrel to bridge the gap to Liam Hendricks. But what the Astros have that they do not is experience. And we've seen it time and time again that matters. Getting the big hit at the right spot. Having guys come in to pitch that have that experience. And the top end of that Astros rotation has that experience and knows how to win games in the playoffs. And not only the playoffs, but win games in the World Series and to win games in the ALCS. And then to add guys at the bullpen. I truly believe what they did at the deadline could be what gets them to the World Series. So look, I'm going to go ahead and take the Astros over the White Sox simply because of that experience. And I think that is what gets them over the top.
Wow, Ben, I think you just became every one of our followers' favorite guest right there. But I like the analysis. I can't argue with it because it's from an outside looking in. You have to look at all different sports. And Johnny says the Tigers scare him. Hey, the Tigers are building something. Let me tell you, man.
Yeah.
I get jealous every time I think of A.J. Hinch being their manager. I still think he's one of the best managers in baseball.
So what about the AL East? Are they just going to beat each other up over there, just trying to win the AL East and then the playoff and everything?
You know what's scary is that AL East is really, really good. And there's 4 teams that I do not want to see in the playoffs. And you know you're going to see one of them. You know you're going to get at least one in the playoffs. And you know, I look at what the Blue Jays did by going out and adding Jose Barrios, and it's the perfect pickup for them. They needed that. They needed pitching, and they just implemented themselves right in the thick of things in that AL East. But you look at the Red Sox, they're good. You look at the Rays, they always do well in the playoffs. You look at the Yankees, and you look at the Blue Jays, who aren't the sexiest pick right now to win or to do anything. But, you know, it's always a rivalry between the Astros and the Yankees in the playoffs, and a fun one at that. But I don't know if I'm picking one of those 4 teams to not make the playoffs for sure. I'm probably taking the Yankees because they just haven't been a lot of fun to watch lately.
Okay, and so I think you already just picked the Astros to win the ALCS. So who do you see coming out of the National League?
I got a hot take for you in the National League. This is a real hot take. My pick to win the National League is the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, I'm taking the Milwaukee Brewers because, like I said earlier, pitching wins in the playoffs. You look at the top 3 in their rotation, Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, tough. Really tough top 3 of the rotation. And then you advance into the bullpen, and you look at guys at the back end like Williams and also a guy like Hader at the back end of that bullpen. They're tough to beat. They're tough to get any runs on. This pitching staff is the best in baseball, arguably, from the rotation to the back end of the bullpen. And this lineup, adding a guy like Eduardo Escobar, is exactly what they needed right there in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, so that's really is a odd take. I wouldn't have definitely pictured you saying that. So that was definitely out of left field, or that's definitely flipping a bat there.
There you go.
All right, so H-Town Wheelhouse is back. So who wins the AL West? That's definitely, we saw how good the Giants were.
You mean NL West?
NL, whatever.
Yeah.
NL West. We saw how good the Giants were. We know that the Dodgers have added some talent, and we know the Padres, if they can get healthy, they could be as good as anybody. So who do you see winning the NL West?
Look, I think it all comes down to the deadline and who did what at the deadline. And the Los Angeles Dodgers had the best trade deadline of anybody. They won the trade deadline. If you can go out and add a Max Scherzer and a Trey Turner, I didn't even know that was possible to get those two guys in the same deal. And I truly believed that NL West was a toss-up heading into the deadline. And then the Padres go and add a guy like Adam Frazier that makes that lineup so deep. And I said this before everything went down. I said, if the Padres can add a pitcher, it doesn't need to be Max Scherzer. It can be a guy like Jose Barrios or a John Gray. I think they win the NL West. And they didn't. They just they didn't go get a pitcher. And not only did they not, the Dodgers went out and made the move that nobody saw coming and made their already probably most talented roster in the NL West. They went out and made it a lot better. So I really believe the Dodgers put themselves in a position to win that AL West just because of what they did at the deadline.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think, the Giants, I really didn't think that we would continue to see them at top. I thought maybe it was they got hot, but they've been able to sustain. And one of the things I noticed in the 3 games against the Giants, and Eric actually pointed this out, and I started watching for it, like every first or second batter in almost every inning gets on base. They just hit, and then they just pitch well. And if they pitch into mistakes, they hit out of it. And the Giants, without having megastars until they got, Bryant. I mean, Crawford is an all-star type player. You got Duggar, who has his moments. You got, Yastrzemski. Duff has been really, really well. But the Giants aren't superstar laden. They don't have the Tatis Jr. They don't have the Mookie Betts, and they've sustained it. So I don't mind the AL West beating up on each other.
I love the Giants out there, and I was fairly disappointed in their trade deadline. I felt like, look, you're a surprise team to many. To start the year, it's safe to say nobody had them winning the NL West. But it got into the year, it got a month in, and the narrative was, okay, the Giants are playing better than they are. And then it got a few months in, and it quickly became, and I don't know if, I'm sure people still feel this way. I certainly don't feel that way anymore. These Giants are the real deal. They're a great team, and there's no fluke about them being on top of the NL West. And they're also beating up on the Dodgers of late. And the Dodgers went out and made a huge splash at the trade deadline and did something about it. And I just felt like I wanted more out of what the Giants did at the deadline. I know last second they swoop in and get a Chris Bryant, who is going to be a great addition for them. I just wish they did more at the back end. I wish they did more in that in the bullpen and added a pitcher maybe in the rotation. Because look, you may have a young team that you didn't expect to be as good as they are this year, and say, okay, we're kind of going to stand pat, and we're not going to sell a lot of our prospects for guys right now because we know we are a young team. But who's also going to be a really good team for a long time? The Padres and the Dodgers. They're not going anywhere. So when you get yourself in a position in a year like this where you have a few game lead after the All-Star break, go for it, man. Just go all in, go for it, and try and win in a year where you weren't expected to.
Crystal ball. What's the outcome of this Dodgers versus Astros 2-game series?
Oh, the outcome of the series. This is tough. I'm gonna say they split. I look at a guy like Walker Buehler, who is having a very under the radar, incredible season. Walker's ERA is right around 2.
Yeah, it's like 1.91, I think.
It's a what?
I think it's like 1 point. I think it's 1.91, isn't it?
It's 2.19.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. Oh,
So
okay.
it's right around 2, and he's going out every night and just dominating. But what I do think is going to happen is I think the Astros are going to beat up a little bit on Max. And I think it's going to be kind of a cool night and a fun night for Astros fans. I just think that feels like something the Astros do. Like I said earlier, they've embraced the villain role, if you will. And this night just kind of feels like, okay, we're facing the Dodgers in LA. You've got your new guy on the mound, the guy that didn't want to come play for us, the guy that you brought in specifically to beat us in a big series. And it just feels like a game that, I don't know, it just feels like one of those games where Altuve leads off with a homer and the Astros put up like 4 or 5 runs on him and they win that game.
I like it.
I showed this to Brett before the show, but this is hilarious. This is Max Scherzer's picture on the MLB website. They don't even
He is LA.
That's incredible.
So I just wanted to show y'all that real quick. I got a good laugh with that. But yeah, I think that if any game, the Astros will probably win that second one. But Carlos Correa does have a career home run off of Buehler, so we'll have to see. And that's definitely going to be the one that there's going to be a lot of tension in. And I think the umpires are definitely going to be looking at both sides. We saw that Brooks Raley got the 3-game suspension for throwing at the Padres. The Mariners hitter who was it?
It was J.P. Crawford. He hit with the curveball.
Yeah.
Brooks, the killer Raley. He is so vindictive. He's got this horrible reputation in Major League Baseball for headhunting. It was,
So game 1 of the playoffs, who would you start? Which one of the Astro starters would you start, Ben?
Oh, good question. For me, it's a toss-up between McCullers and Greinke. I think what the Astros are getting out of Garcia this year has been incredible. But I just think those are the guys that have the experience. This is tough, and if Lance keeps throwing great, it feels like Lance's team. This is the Astros are Lance's team, and it always has felt that way. So if those two are a toss-up going into the playoffs, I'm going to give the ball to Lance and say, hey, man, you're our guy. Go get him.
So I know you already said the Astros are going to World Series, and you called the Brewers going to the World Series. So who wins the World Series in your eyes?
Wow.
Oh, good question.
Man. We're like pressing Ben hard tonight, aren't we? I was a little more softball when you came on with me, man. Eric's like bringing up the heat. Sorry, I didn't prepare you for that.
Look, I feel like I haven't even gotten this far. I got to my World Series prediction, and I feel like people in here are gonna hate me if I take the Astros, if I don't take the Astros. But I've kind of gone all in on this Brewers team, and I feel like I need to. I need to go all in on this Brewers team. I love what they're doing. Look, I love what the Astros have done. I love this organization. They hold a soft spot in my heart. But more so for just not being a homer, I'm gonna take the Brewers, so I don't take the Astros here in every single question I answer.
There you go. No, I like that because we want you to have your own opinion. It would be interesting to go against the Brewers because of the history. Because when Jim Crane purchased the Astros, Bud Selig was not going to allow the Astros to be sold unless Jim Crane agreed to move the Astros to the American League. We know the other team in consideration was the Brewers. The Brewers in their executive branch or group had Bud Selig's daughter. She didn't want to go to the AL. So I remember Lance Berkman actually got fined, I believe, for saying something about how they got extorted, or he said something controversial, and MLB fined him because they were really ticked off about being shoved over to the American League. And so, because, growing up, I mean, that's all I knew was National League. I mean, I remember watching baseball before it was even interleague. And so, so that would be an interesting twist, the Brewers and the Astros, because of that initial history of us getting to the AL.
Well, one, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that little. That's actually a pretty cool fact there. So that would be interesting. Look, I know, and I work for Fox, and my podcast is there, and I'll do the playoff coverage and World Series coverage. Fox doesn't want a Brewers World Series. What they want, and what would be awesome for the world to see, is an Astros versus Dodgers World Series. And I think if you're looking at it right now, and look, the Dodgers are the favorite to make it to the World Series out of the National League. You got to believe now with everything they did. I don't want to make that prediction. That's boring. I don't want to say, yep, the Dodgers are going to make it. But if we could end up getting a Dodgers versus Astros World Series, which one, if that is the case, I'm taking the Astros to win it. But that's what the world wants here. But I do think that would also be an interesting little tidbit for that World Series if it did end up being the Brewers, and certainly for the whole Astros organization with everything that happened.
So before we go, in 30 seconds or less, can you give me some advice? I may be playing in my first wood bat baseball game. I may be pitching an inning and hitting. I need 30 seconds of advice of what I need to do or concentrate on when I'm at the plate. I've never hit competitively with a wood bat.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of you is Shohei Ohtani. So you already have that going for you. You're already going to be great on the offensive and defensive side. And when it comes to the offensive side, the one bit of advice I would give you is just swing hard in case you hit it. That's what you got to do.
I like it. I'm going to take that into Saturday night, and hopefully we won't hear any stories of me being on the IL. So, hey, Ben, thanks for joining us again. It was a pleasure. I know our listeners, we've been talking about you coming on all week since we talked again. I was really glad because Eric wasn't here the first time. And you just add so much to the show. Eric, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Of course. So my podcast is called Flippin' Bats. Flippin' Bats with Ben Verlander. And look, the show means a lot to me. This is my first year as a member of the media, if you will, and no longer playing. And I just want to talk about baseball in the way you guys do. You make the game fun. You make it fun to talk about. And you make it fun to talk about with the Houston Astros. And what I do is make it fun to talk about with the league as a whole. My show is called Flippin' Bats, and it's about making baseball fun. And every conversation I have with guys is just about, it's wanting to feel like a locker room type of conversation we're having, and just back and forth banter, getting to know players. And I've had the pleasure of having some of the best players in the league on at this point. And it would mean a lot for me for you guys to check it out. And it's been an absolute blast. So yeah, Flippin' Bats with Ben Verlander, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Alrighty. And speaking of which, if you know any players that you would like to refer to the Locked On Astros podcast, I don't know if you know anybody. We would gladly take any referrals if you know anybody. That's not a hint or anything, but thank you once again, Ben, for joining. And I'm glad you're finally able to meet Shohei Ohtani. Was that pretty awesome?
I met Shohei Ohtani, the real Shohei Ohtani, and I've now been able to be on the podcast with you twice and talk to the Shohei Ohtani replica. So you'll have to get back to me on how your wood bat league goes and how pitching and hitting goes for you. Because like I said, when I think of you, I think Shohei Ohtani. So don't let me down.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Thank you for joining. And betting on the Astros doesn't have to be a guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, get the daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's Lock of the Day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast hosted by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcast. And once again, Ben, thank you for joining. And a lot of people are going to be subscribing to you now. And guys, go to subscribe to Locked On Astros podcast. And hopefully the Astros will be getting a W versus the lovely Dodgers, who are going to be booing the Houston Astros tomorrow just a little bit. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on the Locked On Astros podcast.